Welcome to Pokemon Masters Console. I am your host, Zero. We are going to be talking about Armarouge today, the other Net Navi, the twin armored Pokemon, and I'm joined by my co-host, Justin. Say hello.
You know, I got one question for you, brother. Is this Heatman or is this Torchman? Because he's got the colors of Heatman, but he's got the shape of Torchman.
You know what? That's a tough one, man. I'm going with Torchman. What do you think?
Torchman? I actually call him Heatman.
All right. So, wait, is yours in-game named Heatman?
Yes.
All right, mine's Torchman. Anyway,
all right, there we go.
Anyway, guys, welcome to another How to Use guide. We're going to be talking about Armarouge. We're going to be deep diving this Pokemon, talking about the stats, the strengths, the weaknesses, and we're going to be talking about this Pokemon in VGC and 3v3.
And obviously, your boy's driving the ship. Why? Because he's a psychic type.
Absolutely.
Brandon's the psychic gym leader in our squad.
So guys, before we get into everything, we just wanted to say thank you to everyone for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed already, hit that big red button, join the PMC, be a part of the family. We see that about 93% of you are not subscribed. Let's fix this number. Let's get that up. Let's get our first 1,000 subscribers. Help us out.
We are on the road. We are climbing. We are on the hype train. Be a part of it. We're going up and up, up and away. Let's do it. So today, Brandon, we are talking about the new psychic type. So out of the two twins, which one's your favorite aesthetically? Is it Armarouge or is it Cerulege?
So nothing against Armarouge, but I definitely like Cerulege better.
I do too. But Armarouge is sweet. It's not saying that Armarouge doesn't look good. It's just that's how cool Cerulege is.
Yeah, like if Cerulege didn't exist, this would be probably the coolest Pokemon in the Pokedex, right?
Oh, yeah. He's great.
Yeah.
He's awesome. They did a good job of like making Net Navis, but they still somehow feel or look like Pokemon to me.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree.
So yeah, he is a fire psychic type Zero. What do you think of that combination? Old Delphox.
It's a decent combination. I think Cerulege also won out on that one by being part ghost. Psychic in this generation is feeling like as bad as it did in Gen 2 because of the introduction of so many dark type Pokemon.
Especially in formats. You know, right now in Series 1, there's no Ruin Pokemon, but there will be again.
Yeah, and you know, just Psychic's down bad right now. We're gonna try to make it work, but it's down bad. It feels bad.
Yeah, but one of the, we will talk about one very key way to utilize that.
Absolutely. So let's talk about some stats here. So we're looking at an 85 base HP. Not bad.
Oh yeah, that's legit.
60 base attack. That's booty cheeks.
So so this is the special version where Cerulege is physical.
Yes, exactly.
Gotcha.
100 base defense. Again, I think that's a Cerulege thing. We kind of just swap those defenses around. So Cerulege has
nice physical defense there.
Yeah, that is solid. 125 special attack. This is what you guys came to see.
Yeah.
And then we got 80 special defense and 75 speed. So that's the spread. A lot of yellow, a little bit of green.
Yep.
And then let's talk about the abilities.
He's slower than Cerulege too.
Yeah. Really like losing out to Cerulege. Kind of hard.
But his move pool, I think, is better than Cerulege.
Yeah. Overall, I would definitely agree.
That's where I think this Pokemon actually has some sauce. But so just like Cerulege, same exact abilities, Weak Armor and Flash Fire. So Weak Armor, if you get hit, you'll drop some defense, but you'll gain speed. So that's really, really good. Flash Fire, you become immune to Fire-type attacks. And if you get hit by Fire-type attacks, your Fire-type attacks do more damage. And it's not like the next Fire-type attack. It's just like a buff that just is on now.
Yep, for as long as this Pokemon remains in battle. If you switch out, you lose that Flash Fire boost. But, say you keep this Pokemon in, you are going to get that Flash Fire boost for the remainder of it being in.
Yep.
So, Justin, you're ready to talk about some homebrew PMC stats here, as well as some VGC staples?
Yeah, because he's really, really strong. This Pokemon does have a really solid niche in VGC right now in Series 1. He's been really, really powerful.
Yeah, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about Armarouge in VGC.
So, in this set, There's kind of a couple ways you can do this, which we'll talk about in the next slide. But for right now, this one's going to be we're going to have a little bit of HP investment, max modest special attack, and then the rest is going to go into speed. You can Terrifier or Psychic, just depending on what your squad is running. Safety Goggles is great. Makes them a really, really, really strong lead and or switch in to Amoonguss. Focus Ash is great, just allows him to stay alive a little bit longer. You can also do things like maybe the Charcoal or the Twisted Spoon, Life Orb. There's a lot of options here. This is sort of your offensive support, right? So as you can see here, there's kind of a lot of options with your attacks. So you can either go Expanding Force, Psychic, Psyshock, just kind of whatever you're feeling. What do you think, Zero? What do you think about Psychic and Psyshock? You love that tech.
So the beautiful thing about VGC is you can take a Psychic move and it's not necessarily like a detriment to your repertoire of attacks. But yeah, I do love the idea of being able to run Psyshock. I think it's a very strong tech. Really helps you out against, if someone decides to bring, things like Chansey and Blissey, which you don't see terribly too often, but they are out there. And Pokemon just in general tend to be a little more vulnerable on the physical side. Like that's just a kind of like an aspect of Pokemon in general, like the game. So Psyshock is always a decent option. It's a safe option, I think.
And Expanding Force is still only like 10 base power less than Psychic. And then depending on, because there's so much Psychic terrain right now, so it's just meta dependent. It's one of those things that's like, you can bring it, or they can bring it, or both. Or you could just be 10 base power less than Psychic. So Expanding Force is a nice tech also. And he's the only Pokemon right now this gen that gets access to Expanding Force. So, but believe you me, we will be leaning into that. Next, we have up his Fire-type stab move. So Heatwave or Armor Cannon. So Heatwave, you know all about it, especially in VGC. Everyone knows about Heatwave. Spread move. Does some damage, has a chance to burn, really, really strong, especially when he stab and or in the sun and or double dip Terrifier. It's actually very, very powerful. But I'm gonna pass over to my co-host because oh man, you're the Mega Man guy. So talk about his signature move, Armor Cannon.
So Armor Cannon, this is when the Mega Buster comes out to play. Armor Cannon, an exclusive move to Armarouge. 120 base power fire special move that lowers your defenses every time you use it. What does that sound like, Justin?
That sounds like a special type, fire type, close combat.
That is exactly what it is, and that is one of the big draws to this Pokemon. It does big damage in a way that a lot of fire Pokemon wish that they could do.
So next up, obviously, not going to bury the lead anymore. Wide Guard, and then Protect or Trick Room. So this is the offensive support. This is why Armarouge is doing so well in Series 1. He's in the top like 10 to 15 of usage on the time of this recording. Very, very, very strong Pokemon because he can hit hard. I think Fire type is like an amazing stab type, and Psychic's a pretty decent stab type. And then he also has Wide Guard Zero. I personally like Protect and Wide Guard both.
Oh, okay.
You could also run. Oh yeah,
you're speaking my language here, brother.
I also like Trick Room Wide Guard. Trick Room being able to, if you're up against a lot of Murkrow that was really popular in the first month of Series 1, it was like second highest usage or something like that for like 3 weeks. So they Tailwind turn 1 and you Trick Room. Assuming you're, in maybe next to Indeedee, maybe that's a little bit safer next to Indeedee so you don't get pranked or taunted. But that way, if they try to Tailwind, then you just Trick Room, and now all of your guys are all the fastest things on the field by a lot because they're in the Tailwind. Do you know what I mean? So Trick Room's actually a really, really nice, solid tech here. So that's sort of why we call this the offensive support set.
Absolutely. And really quick before we move on to the second set, I just want to say about Armarouge and VGC. It fits onto so many teams, right? Like it fits onto Sun teams.
It's so good.
It fits onto Trick Room teams. It fits onto Expanding Force like Psyspam teams. Like it fits onto Tailwind, Trick Room, Sun, Psychic. Like it has so many good niches and so many.
We haven't even talked about the fact that he can set up
screens. Like he's, and Terra,
very versatile.
Terra makes him pretty strong as well.
Yes, Terra's very powerful. On this set, we're just going to do one of the 2 stabs because, we're offensive support. So this is like a pseudo feature, and we're max modest. So like you can go for a defensive Terra, but we will get into that into another slide.
So let's talk about a more specialized version of this Pokemon in VGC. Let's talk about the Psy Spam Armarouge, Justin.
Oh boy, Zero, I know you're excited. The one and only expanding force in the whole game. Obviously, we're going to see people do Psy Spam, and oh man, have we been seeing a lot of Psy Spam teams. People that don't know, what do we mean by Psy Spam? Well, in DD, female and male, they have an ability called Psychic Surge, Zero. What does that do?
So Psychic Surge, when this Pokemon, the Psychic Surge Pokemon, enters the field, it starts Psychic Terrain. Psychic type attacks are boosted in Psychic Terrain, and it also protects Pokemon touching the ground against priority moves.
So, when Expanding Force is used in the Psychic Terrain, this is a move-specific thing for Expanding Force, it then turns into a spread move instead of a single target. For people that are new to the game, when you first click it, it will be deceiving. Even when the terrain is up, it will still seem like a single target move. Mm-hmm. You have to click the button, but once it goes off, once he shoots it, then it triggers with the terrain and becomes a spread move, but you still have to select one of the targets. So for new people, you're doing it right. Just keep clicking. You'll see how it works when the turn goes out.
Yep.
But Expanding Force becomes a spread move, increased damage. And what does it go up to? 120 base power now?
120 base power in Psychic Terrain, and that is before Stab is even factored in, plus
the terrain
boost.
It's absolutely insane. So here, we're Psychic Terra is a very, very strong option. It's not the only option, but it's the one that I would personally go for. I love the big Psychic Eyeball. What do you think about the Terra hat?
I think they did a good job on that one. That one's one of, I think, the better ones, personally.
Okay. I'm a little bit disappointed with mine as a flower, so yeah. I'm happy you're happy.
Yeah.
I think ours could have been a tree, not a flower, but that's okay. Armor Cannon or Heatwave, which one are you going with, buddy?
In this setup, I'm probably going to go with Heatwave because I like to, because you're kind of specializing. This one, you're kind of always going for spread moves. However, if you have to pick something out, like if say you're up against another wide guard user, then you could definitely go Armor Cannon if you're afraid of kind of getting shut down by wide guard, because wide guard is completely spammable. It's not like Protect where it'll fail. You can just keep pressing wide guard.
And it protects you against all spread moves. So no earthquakes, no snarls, no heat waves, no eruptions, no surf, nothing. But speaking of extra enemy wide guard users, that's why we have the option to run Shadow Ball. You also have Energy Ball for coverage. Grass type coverage with fire is very, very powerful. And I'm not just saying that because I'm biased and I'm the grass gym leader. Shadow Ball is really strong against enemy Armarouge. But be careful, trainers. If you coming up against an enemy Psy Spam team with Uraraka, that's our nickname for female in DD, they could be running Follow Me. And why is that a problem, Zero, with Shadow Ball?
Well, Indeedee is part normal, so Indeedee is completely immune to Shadow Ball.
Correct. So be careful, but Shadow Ball is there as a potential way to deal with enemy Armarouge that could stop the set with Expanding Force and Heat Wave. Armor Cannon's not really going to do much unless he Terra's Psychic and gets completely out of it the way that it'd have to be like a mirror match. So, and then we also have Wide Guard to potentially also stop the mirror match, or you can run Protect depending on what your team needs. What do you think about these items and abilities? Do you like weak armor for this type of set, or are you still going to go Flash Fire?
You could definitely make weak armor work. There is a world where you can Terra Dark and U-turn, you could use Dragapult, U-turn into the Dark type or Psychic type. Pop the weak armor, pop a weakness policy, and then you're just slamming damage. You just U-turn into Indeedee. It's some disgusting damage, to be honest. So
it's really good.
So that's the best usage of weak armor. Otherwise, Flash Fire is always just a solid option against Heatwave Hydreigon. and Torkoal, Eruption spam teams. So definitely something to keep in mind. It's definitely a player's choice when it comes to that. But those are a couple scenarios there for you to pick one or the other ability.
I do want to shout out the fact that we're timid here. You can also run Modest with this exact same set for a Tailwind. He's very, very fast underneath the Tailwind, can utilize that very well. Maybe like a Kilowattrell lead that comes in with Tailwind and either dies or switches out, and then your Psychic Terrain comes in from behind.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think the last thing that I want to shout before we move on to the 3v3 side of things is Terra Grass is also an option that, Justin, I know that you are very fond of, and it's definitely a meta pick. It helps you in the matchup against Dondozo. It also just helps you against rain teams in general. It's definitely a very, very strong option.
And you don't even have to do Terra Blast, unlike the Ceruledge. You actually have Energy Ball, which is very, very powerful. I also like the option, obviously if you're going to run this in the sun with Armor Cannon and Solar Beam, big damage.
So let's move on to my side of things, and let's talk about Armarouge in the 3v3 light. So I have to come at this with a disclaimer. Armarouge, in my opinion, is good, not great. The thing about Armarouge, the reality about Armarouge is it needs help. It always needs help. It needs something. There's no way to just kind of point click and do the damage you want or take out the Pokemon you want without some
He's
sort of help.
He's a little bit slower than you might want for a singles format, right?
Right. So he's kind of slow. He doesn't do enough damage for a choice set. If you go choice specs, he's too slow. If you go choice scarf, you don't do enough damage.
That's interesting because when I saw his stats at first, I was like, okay, this is similar-ish to a Breloom.
Yeah.
Similar speed and a little bit lower, but similar, special attack in comparison to the physical. And Scarf Breloom's a thing. Absolutely a thing, right?
Yeah.
Scarf Breloom's a big threat.
Well, I believe Breloom has a little bit of a higher attack, or it's somewhere very similar. And
it is. It's 130 versus 125.
Yep, and then Breloom has access to better stab moves, better abilities, in my opinion, priority, the pressure of Spore. Armarouge doesn't have all of that.
I guess it's fair, buddy, because what we were talking about here is the fact that Flash Fire is the best option, and we're in a vacuum that that's not a bad thing. But when you go out to the grand scope of Pokemon in the game, we're talking about Flash Fire. It's it's not really a great ability, is it? It's cool for what it is, but it's not like an S tier ability. It's not a game breaking ability.
No. So the set we have here is, in my opinion, one of the better ways to run him, if not the best way. In the 3v3 format, especially if you want to go offensive. Like I said, this Pokemon always needs something done ahead of time to really make that kind of impact. So that something is usually Stealth Rock, or in this instance, Callmind, which is a self-serving kind of way to build him. So Armarouge is not very fast, so we're kind of going to lean away from that, but it has decent bulk. So we're going to lean more into the bulk. With this 196 defense, 44 special defense, we're going to put a little bit of speed in there just to outspeed other bulky versions of this Pokemon, as well as other base 70-ish Pokemon. Then we're just going to run max modest attack with Terrifier. So, the reason we're running Terrifier is, say you get in a situation where you need the damage, but you don't have the room to click the Callmind, you just hit that Terrifier, and you just click Armor Cannon. Whenever you get in a position to hit a really strong Armor Cannon, it's the best position to be in with this Pokemon. It's
literally a Mega Buster that shoots a giant fireball. You can't go wrong.
Right. So your goal is to always find a way to Callmind, because this Pokemon can force some switches, but not as much as other Pokemon of this category, like Golden Go or Dragapult. But if you can find yourself in a position to hit Callmind, that's your goal, is to run a self-sufficient, bulky Callmind. You got the Armor Cannon. Shadow Ball is essential for all of those Ghost-type Pokemon running around right now. And then the last one is kind of like a dealer's choice. If you're seeing a lot of, Dondozo, I think Energy Ball is the way to go. If you want just raw damage against things like Dragonite, or you want raw damage against things like Garchomp, you could absolutely run Psychic. I think that's a dealer's choice. If you want to hit Palathin, Palathin's probably going to blow you up for the most part. But that is an option. So this is how I think Armarouge is best run. I like to run Leftovers, or like a Citrus Bear or something like that. This Pokemon does not have a self-sustain like Bitterblade from Cerulege, so you're going to have to just invest in bulk and recovery items.
But what he does have is coverage. So just a special shout out here at the end. We're just going to go through them real quick and shout them out sort of lightning round style.
Yeah.
Not only does Pokemon get access to things like Ally Switch, which is amazing, he's got Aura Sphere to deal with Hydreigon. He has Clear Smog to deal with Sylveon. Absolutely amazing. He has Dark Pulse to help him deal with enemy size spam teams and get around the fact that indeed he is normal. He has Dragon Pulse to deal with all these dragons in the meta. Energy Ball really helps him with big threats, especially Rotom Wash. And the Terra Ground Garchomp.
And then the last thing I think we should shout out is Flash Cannon. So Flash Cannon, nice strong steel option against Fairy type Pokemon.
Very good against Fairy type Pokemon. Very good against rock type Pokemon that might want to try to come in, maybe like a Tyranitar. Very, very good option there. He has a lot of uses in terms of just being able. So I think Expert Belt's a good shout.
Absolutely.
For trainers looking for another set. Let's go over as usual and close out by looking at his stats on Pikalytics.
So yeah, as you can see here, he's sitting at number 12 in the usage. So pretty solid, man.
Yeah, and he was higher a couple of days ago. He actually fell from grace a little bit because the Maushold as well as the Dondozo and the Sylveon are actually on the rise. But I do, like I said, I want to shout out, he does get Flash Cannon and Clear Smog. So secret tech that we're going to start running. Stay tuned.
Yeah. So top usage moves, Armor Cannon, Expanding Force, Trick Room, Wide Guard. That is an entire set right there.
Hey, that's our first set.
Yeah. So that's going to wrap it up, guys. Let us know what you think in the comments about Armarouge. It's a Pokemon that hopefully finds more of a meta. I think its role has kind of really been defined early in the meta. I think it's something that will very much likely fall off later, unless it's good against certain restricted Pokemon. Once we get into those formats, however, I just don't see that
There's
happening.
So many cards.
Yeah. So, Justin, your thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it. I think he's great, but he is going to struggle when more formats start to open up. But for right now, I think he's in a good spot. I think he's a solid like A+, S-. He's just a really good offensive support. I personally love the Wide Guard tech. Wide Guard plus Expanding Force is how I like to run it with a Psychic terrain. So that's my shout out.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one. Until then, I've been Zero.
And I'm Justin.
Council's adjourned.